Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining Home and Events as we paint these two ladybugs. Our artist today is the talented Heather. She will take you through how to make this sketch your very own masterpiece. But before we begin, let's take everything out of our paint kits. You want to make sure that everything is within arm's reach and that it's flat so that you can easily reach everything as you're painting. You want to make sure that you fill those cups with water so that you can clean your brushes in between painting. Put on those aprons because we are working with acrylic paint, which tends to dry very fast and very permanent on clothing items. And then last but not least, you want to open up your paint pots. And we're going to give you an example of how to do this. So you want to hold the pot with your the paint pot base with your right hand, and then you're going to open that left flap with your left hand, and it should open up pretty smoothly after that. We'll show you one more time. You want to hold the base, pull the left flap, and it'll open right on up. All right. So we're going to give you about 30 seconds to go ahead, open up your paint pots, put on your aprons, and fill those cups with water. Okay. So Heather is going to take you through how to make this your own masterpiece. Now she's just giving you a guideline. She's giving you kind of like a blueprint, but you are free to make this your own, have your creative license, and go for it. Take it away, Heather.
Hi guys, thanks for coming to create with me today. We are going to start by painting our flower at the top. I'm going to grab my little brush. I'm going to dip it in a little bit of water, and we're going to go into the white paint, load our brush with some white paint. I just want to get white on the daisy here, on the petals. I'm just going to go around and try and stay in the lines as best as I can. But it's okay if we go out of the line that's there. It's okay if we cover it over. It's just for a guide. Anyway, you want to make sure that you're putting your paint on in the thin layer. So you don't want to see any big lumps of paint on the canvas. That's going to cause it not to dry when we're ready to work on this section again, because painting is done in many layers. Even a painting like this that we're going to do very quickly, it's a lot of layers. So we want to make sure you spread your white paint very thin in the petal shapes here so that it dries when it's dry enough to work on it later when we're ready to. So we're just following the shape of the petal all around. And this doesn't have to be perfect. I know it's hard to see white paint on the white canvas. Just wanted to get this white on as a bottom layer so that we can come back to this flower a little later on in our canvas session. All right, repeating the daisy white with the white. And you can kind of see on the canvas where the white is. This is also a good time to see how the paint works with your brush. You see the strokes. You see how to spread the paint around with your brush. You can't mess this part up. It's white on white. We're just getting a base for our flower. All right, so I think we're back at the flower petal that we started at. If you're not all the way done painting your flower and you want to pause the tape to catch up, please do so we can all paint together. I'm going to take and switch brushes now to the bigger brush that we have in our packet. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the sky background. It's a lot of space to cover. So I thought that we'd go ahead and do that and get that started. What I'm going to do is take and I'm going to mix some white with a tiny bit of blue, just a tiny bit, to give us a light sky blue. And you can mix whatever color blue you would like until you see that it's the blue that you like. So I've just done that with some blue and some white. Your color should look a little bit like that. And I'm going to go in and start painting the background, the nice sky blue color. And this is also where you want to try and put your paint coat on pretty thin so that it's ready to accept more paint and it's dry. So basically in this step, we're just filling our canvas with color. We're going to just fill the sky area with the light blue as our base color. It's okay if you end up making the blue paint go into an area that you don't want it. We can paint over it. Nothing's permanent when you're painting, so please try to have fun, not worry about making any mistakes. I'm going to guide the brush around the petals. Just taking our time, following the line where the petals meet the sky. Load my brush with some more paint. I'm going to come up here, get this part of the sky. If you notice that you're running out of paint, the color that you made, just mix some more. Just add some white right into that blue that's still there, and you'll probably get close enough color to the sky. It doesn't have to be the exact same color because skies are all different colors of blue, so don't worry if the second time you mix the color it's a little darker or a little lighter. We'll work with that later. And we're just going around painting the background in with the sky. You can see on my canvas a little bit that the blues don't quite match up, and that's fine. This is just the bottom layer. And we're going to go all through here, just following the contour of the petals. Follow the line all through. We'll go around this area. I'm just making everywhere the sky is going to be in our painting the blue. And remember to spread it out pretty thin so that it dries fast. Don't want to see any globs of paint on this layer. You're going to run into some issues when we're working on the second and third layers. It's just going to all start to really blend together where you want a layer instead of a blending all the color together. And if you paint over something that's not supposed to be blue, it's okay. We can grab that area and bring that area back in when we paint with another color. It's okay that you're seeing brush strokes in the sky color right now. This is the first layer. So the first layer of paint when you put on your canvas, it's pretty thin. So you're going to see textures of your brush strokes. You might even see the texture of the canvas. Sometimes I like to leave that brush strokes and the texture of the canvas showing through in my paintings. Just adds just another layer of interest for the eye to look at in the final masterpiece. All right. If you feel like your paint isn't spreading smoothly enough, you can always dip your paintbrush in a little bit of water to make the paint a little bit more thinner to spread easier. I'm going to do that now. You see, I have watered down version. That's called a wash. I can easily just pick up some paint and it spreads real smoothly. It's a little thinner with the water added, but you get to cover more of the canvas faster when it's thinner and you can spread it easier. And we're just following all the lines that are already here for us. You go in the line, it's okay. You go out of the line, it's okay. We're going to fix it all later. This is just the bottom layer. Don't want you to worry too much about messing up because that defeats the purpose of being here today, creating with one another. Want to have fun. Want to let go, not worry about things. Just focus on paint. As you can see, I have all different types of blues going on in my sky color. That's okay. It's going to work out eventually. I've also painted over some of the lines that were there for me. That's all right. We'll bring them back. In the tinier spaces, you probably want to go a little slow, adding the paint very carefully. You might even want to switch to the tiny brush, which I'm about to do in just a moment, just so that I can make it easier for the blue to go in those tinier spaces without trying not to mess up as much. You just want to kind of go around, see if there's any space on your canvas that still needs blue. I'm going to rinse my big brush. I'm going to grab the little brush so that I can get the tinier spaces of the blue. When I grab a new brush, I always want to wet it just a little bit so that the paint takes on the brush a little easier and it spreads more evenly and smoothly. Here we are again at this little area with the little brush. I can get in little areas much easier now that I have the littler brush. We're going to paint right over those little antenna. And I'm going to show you how to paint them back in again. So don't worry. Don't worry about that. You can see I've kind of painted in some of my ladybug because I'm not perfect either. But we'll fix it and make it beautiful before the end of the painting. I'm going to take the little brush and go in, clean up some of the edges with my flower. Any little areas that you weren't able to access and get paint in before with the bigger brush, you can come in with a little brush and get your blue paint where the sky is all around. Down here in between these blades of grass where the sky is a little tricky, even with a tiny brush, but it's easier with a tiny brush. And if you get blue paint on the green where the green grass is, don't worry. We can paint right over it. You won't notice it. That's the beauty of painting. It's very forgiving. Once it dries, you can paint a whole new picture once this picture dries. So we are at a point where we have all of our bottom layer of sky in, painted in. If you're not at a point where this is and you want to pause the video to kind of catch up, please do so. Don't feel like you have to rush and keep up with me. It's hard for me to see where you're painting because I'm not there with you, although I wish I could be. But definitely pause it, paint at your own pace, catch up, and resume when you're ready. So I have the base of the sky down, and I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to switch brushes. I'm going to get the base of all of my grass, all of everything that's green. I'm going to go ahead and so I'm going to grab my green onto my bigger brush. I'm just going to start getting the base of the green in. And we're just going to follow the lines for the grass that we have here. Just get a nice base coat of green. With our acrylic paint, when you are painting with it, the more that you layer the paint, the more interesting the color itself becomes, and the better your paint will look at in the end. You'll see that as we go through the layers of this painting together. And don't worry if you see that you're going outside the grass lines. We can touch everything up later in the final process of our painting. So right now we are just coloring in with green everything that is a grass or a stem, part of the flower, everything that's green on the flower and the grass. And we're not really worrying about how it looks because this is the bottom layer. The paint needs a good surface to adhere to build up the color as you paint. So this is the purpose of that. Just put it on our foundation. And I'm going out of the lines a little bit. It's okay. I'm not worried. You shouldn't be worried. We're having fun here creating these ladybugs. They're going to be beautiful when we're done. And by all means, if you wanted to make your grass purple or blue, you could make your grass purple or blue. I'm just here to guide you in the colors, how to paint the colors, and make your own masterpiece. We are still going strong with the green. Just want to get all of the grass and the stems on the flowers a nice coat of green. It's okay that you see brush strokes, and it's okay that all of there may be a little bit of white here and there, just the bottom layer. So don't panic. Be patient. Work of art is not instant. It takes a lot of time, dedication to the paint, get it to do what you want it to do. You want to make sure you're spreading the paint around evenly. You don't want to see any globs of paint on your canvas because that's going to make it not dry as fast. So if you have some globs, you want to go and get that glob and spread it around so that the paint dries easier, faster, so that we're ready for our next step. Just finishing up the grass at the bottom here. Just adding in some color. Where the grass is. And still need some green up here on our daisy. You want to keep a nice amount of paint on your brush so that when you're using your brush, it goes smoothly on to the canvas. If you notice that when you're painting with the paint and there's a lot of white still where you put your brush, then you may need to reload your paint. All right, so it looks like I've got all of my grass colored in. So I'm going to clean my brush. While I clean my brush, if you are not at a point where all your grass is colored in, please pause the video and catch up so that we can paint together. So I got all the green off of my brush. I'm going to go ahead and get our base coat on our ladybug. And my ladybugs are going to be red. Yours don't have to be. I'm going to put the base color of my ladybug down. Just following the lines that were made here on the canvas. Yeah, just little oval shapes. And it's okay if a little bit of paint goes outside the line that is provided. We'll fix it later. If you wanted to do it with a littler brush, you certainly could, but I find that this isn't a little tiny space, so it's easily done with the square brush. Okay, so I have my red first coat for my ladybugs down. And while that's all drying, so there is some stuff I still see that is a little wet. I'm going to go to the flower. And in the center of the flower, it's like an orange yellow. But we don't have orange on our palette, but we can make it. So we're going to take a tiny bit of red and mix it in with the yellow until we get a nice orange color that we like. And I've made an orange. I'm going to show you the orange. I'm going to paint the orange center of the flower. All right. I don't see anything else that might need orange, so I'm going to rinse my brush of the orange. I might need it later for touch up, so I won't get rid of it. It'll be there for later. And so I think our might be all right to start our second layer on our sky. And now that we have a layer down, the paint will build easier. So I'm going to take some white. I'm going to give this little cloud some white. Those clouds are mostly white. We're going to go ahead and make the outline of the cloud. This is moment where if you see any space between your sky and your cloud that still have no paint on the canvas, I'm going to go ahead and fill that in just by extending the cloud shape and covering up any line that you see there. We have one cloud. Remember to do it in nice thin coats so that it dries faster. I'm going to go ahead and bring the other cloud shape in. I'm doing that just by coloring it in with some white. And you see that the cloud shapes are coming in. A little bit of blue coming into the white, and that's fine because even when you see the clouds in the sky, they're not all white. They have different shades of color all throughout them. I'm going to take a little bit of our sky blue that we made while the white cloud is still wet, and I'm just going to go in around the edges with the blue just to give it some definition, some shadowing, make it look like it's not just a flat cloud. And you can play around with this technique. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time. I don't ever maybe do things perfect the first time. I'm going to come back and play with that cloud coloring also once it's dried to show you how you can easily transform it. So we're going to go through and kind of unify our cloud sky. And we're just going to go with a lighter blue in our sky. And if you need to make more of the light blue, remember it's the blue and the white, a lot more white than blue to achieve the light blue. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of put my brush in a circular motion all over the back. Just to kind of give a little bit of texture to the sky. I'm going to grab some more color. I'm going to come up here with the same color. And I'm just going to keep coming in with different colors of blues. Because if you look up in the sky, there's really not one color of blue all the time. There's just different colors everywhere. And the sky is very forgiving for an artist. You can paint a sky with a lot of color, a lot of different hues of a color, different shades of a color. So don't worry if all the blues aren't matching. Kind of give it a little circular motion. And that way, when you come back in with your second and third layers, I should say your third and fourth layers, they have a little bit of texture. Things are popping through from the first layer. You don't want to do your circular motion in between the daisy petals. We'll just paint that again, just real quick. And we're just going to have fun with the sky for a little bit. You can't mess the sky up, so don't feel like you are or you messed up just because it doesn't look the way it looks on mine. Just give yourself some time, experiment with how the paint is flowing off of your brush, and keep going in with layers of your paint until you find what works for you. You see at the top of our painting, the sky is a little darker. We're going to go right into our blue while that layer's wet and come in with a darker shade of blue. And you can go in a circular motion. You can go in a back and forth motion. Whatever works for you to put the paint down on the canvas. And you can see after like the second coat of paint how the paint is taking to the canvas a little bit better because it has the other layers of paint under it. I'm going to go ever so carefully around the flower with the paint. You have a little bit of a darker blue on the brush now. You can see how the brush strokes are giving the sky a little bit of texture. Even where there's no clouds painted, there's a cloud, could be a cloud in the sky. We just can't see it. Just want to go around, clean up our edges with our blue wherever we can. You see something that might still be white. We're just picking places we want to add more blue, different blue, all around. It looks like the bottom is a lighter color. And we can start working that in. We want to grab more white to put into the blue that you might already have. I'm going to go and mix so much white into the blue. It's going to almost be white. It's going to have just a tint of blue. You'll see that when I put it on a canvas. It almost looks white. And because the blue underneath is still a little wet, it's going to pick up that a little bit. And that's fine. And we're just going to paint the bottom of our canvas this almost white blue. And you can see how when I move my brush in the circular pattern, you don't really see a lot of the brush strokes, but you get a texture. You just want to kind of do that all over your canvas. bring that light color down through most of the bottom here. And if you wanted to just grab white at this point and go over it, you can, because the blue is going to pick up from the bottom. Just tint the white ever so slightly. You can see we're getting that bottom light color in our sky. And we're taking the time to go in and shape our blades of grass a little bit better. Any green that you may have gotten into the blue, you can cover up with this white. White is like an eraser on the canvas because the canvas is white. So if we put white down, it's almost like an eraser. It just brings it back to the canvas color. You can touch up any little imperfections that you had with your grass if you'd like. Sometimes it helps as you're progressing through your painting to give boundaries to your objects in your painting so that you can see maybe a final outcome a little bit more clearly in the middle of your painting. I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna touch up my grass. You see how if I take that all the way down, you can't see that grass anymore. All of that shaky line of the green is gone now that I trimmed it up with the white, the blue and the white. I'm gonna do the same thing with this little section. I'm gonna make it a little bit cleaner. Bring the brush straight down and clean up that edge of grass. And even if you mess up here, we're still not done. So we can still go back and correct it very easily. Right. So I'm still working on my sky. I'm going to go right into the blue paint, not cleaning my brush. And I'm going to really come in and start really bringing in that dark blue sky that you see at the top. I'm just going to drag the dark blue over the canvas. You'll start to see the difference in the color once it's up against the other color. Just gonna start making the dark blue area in the sky. If you want to switch to your tinier brush for some tinier spaces, certainly do that. I'm going to get ready to do that as soon as I get a little bit more of the dark blue on here, just in a certain areas. You see where I'm just placing the dark blue around. I'm not really worrying about what it's looking like now. I'm going to come in. I'm going to rinse my brush really, really good. And I'm going to come in with a little bit of water on it. And I'm just going to spread this blue around a little bit. And you can see how the color is spreading a little bit. I'm just spreading it around. I don't have any color on my paint brush. I'm using the color that was left on the canvas. and spreading that around with water. This is called a wash. This helps blend the color and alleviate brush strokes. So it makes your brush strokes disappear just a little bit. Gonna get a little bit more water. Come over and do the same area. I'm gonna wash this area too. You'll see the brush strokes kind of fade. My color is blending a little bit smoothly. I want to leave some texture there because after all, it is a sky. And the sky is full of texture when you look at it. Just going in and taking just the water and spreading the paint around. The paintbrush, of course, is pulling up some paint off of the canvas. So you do have a little bit of paint on your brush. I'm just going to spread it around just so that it blends in with what's already going on the canvas. It just doesn't look like I've just left a big blue blob there like I did before. You can see how we're blending that just with a little bit of water on a clean brush. We're blending it all in. I'm going to get some more blue paint. I think it needs a couple more layers of the dark blue in certain areas. And you can see that that dark blue blended right in to that blue that's there. And that's fine. That just means that the paint's still wet. So instead of layering, it's blending into one another. So that tells me that we should leave that corner alone for a little bit and come back to it a little later on to add in some more texture and detail. We're going to leave that corner alone. We're going to come down to another area that we think we might need a little bit of work with while that top layer dries at the top part of our painting. I'm just working around some paint that's here. You notice if you put the darker blue next to the white, it makes more of a contrast in the painting and it makes the object stand out more. Like I'm going around the edge of this cloud that you really couldn't see. But now that I have a darker blue around it, the edge of the cloud starts to pop out more. You can really see where the cloud starts and begins. And I'm doing this with what's called a dry brush technique. So I barely have any paint on my brush. I barely have any water on my brush. And I'm just creating little specks of paint everywhere just to give almost an airbrush look to your painting. You can hear that the brush is pretty dry and I'm moving it pretty vigorously across the canvas. We have our sky coming right along. Just a couple areas where I think that we need to kind of even out the hue just a little bit. And I'm coming back to doing the circles so that you don't see a whole lot of the long brush strokes. They don't, I mean, you can see lines in the sky, but you don't see them that often. The sky is more of a very soft, fluid like appearance. It doesn't really have a whole lot of stark lines, but this is your painting. If you wanted your sky to have lines, you certainly could have it in your painting. All right, so I'm going to go right around the little petals again to kind of color in any areas I might have missed. Any areas that you can still see the guidelines that we gave you. I'll just cover them right on up. And it's okay that you get the blue and the white, because what we're going to do next is we're going to create the petal so it doesn't look like it's flat. We're going to give it some 3D feel so that looks a little bit like real life flower. So I'm going to rinse my brush. And I think I'm going to grab the littler brush for this. And I like to shadow my white with a hue of blue, just like in the sky. So I'm going to mix white with just a tiny bit of blue, and I'm going to get a very light blue pale color. That's going to allow me to come in and just trace around the outline of the flower that we have with the light blue. And I'm going to do like maybe 3 petals at a time. 3 is a good number. With the light blue. And then I'm going to come in with my white and I'm going to blend it, because these are still wet and it's easy to blend. Just rinse that off, let that set to the side. Dip my larger brush in the white and come in and paint another layer of white. I'm going to grab that blue that's with the white, and you'll see how it's starting to kind of give the flower a little bit of a not just flat white feel. It has some shape to it. You can see where the other petals are laying over top of it. And don't worry if this part, if everything turns light blue, because before it's all done, we're going to go back in and give this daisy just a touch of white when it's all said and done in our final stages. But in this stage, we're going to keep creating the shadows and the definition of the daisy petals by going around them with the light blue. I'm only going to do about 3 at a time because I want to work with the paint while it's still wet and blend it in with the white. And as you can see, I'm not worried about, oh no, the whole petal is blue. This is the base. I want to create some shadow effects, especially down here in the base where the petals start to come out from the center of the flower, because that's where less light will hit the flower down in that little section. Just want to kind of work a little bit of a light blue all around the center of that flower. And then bring it out around the borders of the petals. And then I'm going to come back in with my white. Let's kind of blend that back in and see how that works. Daisy doesn't look like it's just on the canvas. Daisy looks like it's coming off the canvas just a little. And you're giving the eye that's looking at it an idea of where the light starts and stops, how the petals overlap each other. And I want to make this petal a little longer in this painting. Feel free to definitely, if something doesn't look right to you in the guidelines that we gave, if you need to adjust that, please do so. Just want to make it your own as much as possible. And you can see, hopefully you can see on the camera, not sure, it's a little light, but we're basically going around. You can even try and do it with a little bit of a darker blue so that you can see. The darker blue will work too. You want to go in and make your little shadows with your darker blue. And then we're going to go back in with our white and calm that down a little bit and show how each of the petals are one of one flower, but they are separate. And you can do that by adding lights and darks to the flower. So before that dries, I want to come back. And I still want to use my little brush because we're doing a little detail work here. Let me dip it in the white, and I'm going to go right in where the dark blue is and just kind of pull that color with the white down the petal. And you'll see that there's still a little bit of the dark blue there, but also we're creating another color of blue to give this petal a less flat look on the canvas. You can see the blue there. I think I'm going to go ahead and do the whole flower in the darker blue so that you can see it a little bit better what I did on the camera, just real quick while you guys are working on your petals. And I have just kind of bringing around the darker blue where the light is less likely to hit in the center of the flower, where the petals meet the center of the flower. I don't know if you can see that, but makes a really nice contrast against that orange. So now that the dark blue paint is still wet, I'm going to come in with the white. I'm still using my little brush. And I'm just going to go right over that just to kind of pull that blue, not make it as harsh, blend it in a little bit. Give that shadow effect of the flower. If you find that the paint isn't blending well, just add a little bit more water on your brush. And then you'll see it start to really blend. And you don't want to take all the blue paint away. Just want to tone it down just a little bit. Great. While I'm waiting for the flower to dry, I'm gonna go ahead and pay attention to some ladybugs down here. They're looking a little drab. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and just firm up my red with just adding another color, another coat of the red, just real quick. There's one ladybug. Here's the second ladybug. And certainly feel free to pause the tape if you need to, so that we can all catch up and paint together. And we will let that red dry, and we'll come back in to put some spots on our ladybug in just a little bit. While the paint's drying there, we should work on our grass and our stems for our flowers. So in the beginning, we just put down a flat green color, which is fine if grass was flat in one color, but it's not. So what I like to do is make different colors to show depth and texture in my painting. I'm going to take and mix some green and white together to make a lighter green. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of yellow to that just to get like a more brighter kind of green. And you can mix whatever green that you like. You mix the color until it speaks to you on your palette. And then I'm going to come in and kind of just see where I want to put the color at, where it speaks to me a little bit. I want to define the blades of grass here. So this is a blade of grass. We can see right here, a big blade of grass. So I'm going to define that a little bit with that color, a little bit better. I'm going to take that same color and define this blade of grass, that color as well. I'm going to give this blade of grass that same color. It's going to kind of unify the grass with these colors. And you can do this with whatever color you make, with whatever green. You don't have to add a yellow in if you don't want to. I'm adding yellow in just to give it a little bit of a warmer, brighter feeling. I'm just going to kind of go around and highlight just different areas of the grass. Make it multicolor so it doesn't seem flat. And you'll see how, as we're going around adding the different layers and building the different colors, how it'll all come together in the end. The different colors also help to fill in any little white areas that you might still have on your canvas. And get rid of some of the brush strokes that you see on the first layer. When you put that second and third layer on, that's when you start to see the magic happen. All right. You can see a little bit change with our grass area. How it's starting to come into play and starting to pop off our canvas just by adding different color to it. Gives it a shape. another layer of interest for the eye to look at when you're painting. So that is the second layer of the grass. I'm going to rinse my big brush. I'm going to come in with my little brush. And I like to work a lot on a canvas while the paint's wet, just blending colors, cleaning up edges, just kind of cleaning everything up. And you'll see the second layer, even though it's the same color, it looks a lot darker than the first layer that we put on. And this is where I was talking about how when you build the color on your canvas, you just keep layering the colors get better, and you start to see the actual shapes appear. See less of the actual canvas on the bottom and more of your picture coming through. I'm just going to go in where I think that some shadow should be. So there's definitely going to be a shadow where the blades of grass are overlapping. So I'm going to make that a little bit of a darker area here. And I'm going to make this a little bit of a darker area. And you can see how when you put the darker green, a layer of the darker green next to the lighter green, you can see that contrast that you like in a painting. That gives the eye something to look at. It draws the eye all around where the contrast is. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just some blades of grass. Grass is also very forgiving, just like the sky. We'll just go around, define some edges of the grass with the darker green. Doesn't have to go all the way to the bottom or the top. Just wherever you want to see some darker green. And identify the start of one blade of grass from another. Don't forget, if the paint isn't spreading well, to dip it in a little bit of water so that your paint glides on a bit more smoothly. We want nice strokes of thin paint going on now because we're still working on our painting. It's kind of almost finished. We're in the messy middle right now. Every painting has a messy middle. Important to stick with the painting so that you can see it through to the end, the finished product. You can look back and remember all of the stages that your painting went through to get to where it is for your finished product. We're just identifying the edge of this grass here with the green, just the green. We didn't mix anything in. While we're here, I'm going to grab just some yellow, and I'm just going to start in with the yellow while I have the green on my brush. And that adds a bit of a highlight. You can see and blend that in. And an area of interest in your painting so that the grass isn't all one color. You could add You don't have to add yellow. You could add a different color if you'd like. If you'd like it to be a little bit less realistic, you can add in a purple. Add in red. You can add in whatever color you'd like. But I chose yellow just to kind of give it a happy, warmer feeling all around my grass. I'm just kind of putting some yellow down because yellow is a sheer color and it's going to, well, more than likely take a lot of the color that's under it and kind of just transform it into a more yellower hue of that color, not just a bright yellow. You can also put the yellow where you think that the light might hit more from the sky than another area. This is just giving our grass a little bit of texture so that it doesn't look flat on the canvas. You're able to really see the individual blades of grass and that it's fun to look at. If you decide that you made this color show up too much, you don't want it as yellow or as purple or whatever color you're using, we're still working on our painting, so you can go over that later on. I like how the yellow is transforming the green that's currently on the canvas. I'm going to keep going in with the yellow. Just making subtle hints of a different color green that's hiding out in our grass. I'll show you an example of an area that I put too much yellow in. I'm gonna, this area right here, I don't think I want it that yellow, but I'll come back and I'll show you how we can make it different color, just a little bit. Just have to wait for that area to dry really. And we'll come back in. You see how the yellow is just making that green a totally different green. And that's the beauty of working with colors on your canvas. You don't need a whole lot of colors. Once you get the hang of how to layer your color on the canvas, you only need your basic primary colors, black and white. I'm going to take the darker green now, and I'm going to really define the edges of the leaves that we have on our flowers. And see how the darker green against that yellow green is really providing a contrast so that the eye can tell where that leaf starts and where that stem ends. And to show that that leaf is on that stem, I'm going to come in with some darker green just right there behind that leaf. And it looks like it's a little wet still. I'm probably going to give it a little time to dry before I really show some more shadowing on that area. It's important that everything that's round in real life on your canvas, have a shaded edge so that it shows it's bending away from the front of the canvas. And that's what gives it the not flat appearance. So we can go in and go all around the edges of our stems with our dark green now. Just kind of showing that this is the edge and it's curving away from the viewer. And this doesn't have to be perfect line on the inside. We can come back in and blend it just like we did with the sky. You can blend that harsh line away with a little bit of water and maybe a little bit more yellow. Right. See how the stems are starting to really take shape now that we're have a whole lot of different colors going on, contrasting with each other. I'm going to make the area right under the ladybug all dark because the ladybug's sitting on that leaf there. There's no light getting to that. So that's going to be dark. I'm just kind of going around, just tracing around the great blades of grass and showing where they start in the sky with that dark green. That you really can tell where they start and stop. And I'm gonna shade under the ladybug again on this side because the light isn't gonna get to that under ladybug a whole lot. Keep going around with the green, cleaning up any lines for my grass. And if you see an area on the grass that you didn't like with, like say you made your line really big like that, you can just take a little bit of the yellow we were using and blend that right in. You see how easy that was? It's all gone. Clean up this line here. I'm taking that paint, that yellow, put a little bit of water on your brush to do that wash effect we talked about. And it's gone. Slowly fading away. This area needs a little bit of work to my eye. Just a little blending. Take a little bit of water, work that in. Just by wiggling it around. And that edge that was there isn't so stark as it was before. It's more blended. If you have an area that you don't want to be as dark, you can add the yellow again, or you can even bring in some white, which I'll do for you in a moment, just to show you that you can keep fixing and creating and working with the paint that's currently on your canvas until you like what you see. I'm going to bring in a little bit of white on my tiny brush here, just a little tip on my brush, and I can put that here just to show a little bit of a highlight in the bend of the stem here. Look, I put a lot of white on. What if I put a lot of white on right there? It's okay because I can just go and pick up my green and my yellow and make that white disappear real quick because it's all still wet. And I'll just go right in while it's still wet and blend it away. If you want it to be real white there, certainly leave it that way. But we're just building color right now on our canvas. Building the shapes of the stems. You just want to play around with the color until we get the shape that we want. And you see that when the paint is still wet, it's very easy to work with and blending the colors together, as long as one, you are being patient, and two, you're not putting a whole lot on the brush. Kind of see that. We put a highlight there. Let's make a highlight over here. I'll put the highlight here, right in there. I'm gonna grab some green and some yellow, mix that right on my brush. I didn't even take the white out. I'm gonna come in with that color, the whole nother color I just made. It's very fun. And just kind of go in. And I'm gonna keep playing with that area. See, the white is gone, but I can still grab more white and bring it right back, right on top. And this is building a color right on the canvas for us. And you can add the white again. Maybe this time don't blend it in as much. And you do that again, not blending it in as much on the next layer. And you start to see that highlight that you were looking for to show the curve in the stem. I'm gonna clean up my line there a little bit. I'm gonna grab just a little bit of the dark green and just clean it up just a little bit. Grab some water so I can spread that dark green I just put down around. It's okay if you pick up some of the white again. You can just keep playing with it until you get the desired shape for the brand, for the vine. If you take all your white away, it's easy to just go back in and put it right back in, right where it was. I can lay your color wherever. Once you get the first couple layers of paint down, the paint really is a lot of fun to work with and play with. Just adding different colors on top to see how they work with each other. Using different contrasts where you think that it should be. I'm gonna go around and do the rest of that dark green outline to the rest of my grass and my leaves, my stems. And take this time to see if there's something that doesn't look like I want it to. You can fix it real easy just by playing with the color and blending it. If it's too dark, if this is an area that I don't like the line, you can just wiggle the paint around and blend it in like I'm doing. You don't see as much of the line. I'm gonna grab some more water just to kind of do a wash of color over the color that's here. I kind of get rid of the brush strokes that I don't want to see right now. Sometimes brush strokes create good texture, so they're not necessarily bad. Sometimes you don't want to see them. It's your choice. I'm here to show you how to get rid of them. Just take a little bit of water on your brush with no paint while your paint is wet, and you can wash away the brush strokes. Going to finish outlining the rest of our greenery. And you can, when you're doing this, play with the shape of the greenery that you want to be final in your painting. If you see any white spaces between your sky and your leaf, maybe you want to extend the leaf over so that you don't see the white spaces just a little bit. That's what I did. And now we're adding our outline to our daisy, just to kind of make it stand out. Up here is going to be tricky. Take your time. Put that dark layer of green in. And see how that dark green made that white petal pop out a little bit more. I'm going to follow the line of the stem right on around. Right. So we want to make sure that this stem looks round. So we're going to take, while this green is still wet, I'm going to go in with more yellow. I'm going to be pretty liberal with my yellow here. I'm going to just go right over that green that you just put down. That gives it a little bit of variation to show that it's not just flat, that light is hitting it at different places. And it just gives a little bit more something for your eye to look at when you're looking at this painting later. And we're going to go in with our white and give that highlight in the middle of the stem. It's kind of blended in because it's easy to blend because the white is still, the green is still wet. So you can see how to blend that right in. I'm going to do that here on this leaf too. And you see it started out really white and you were like, oh no, it's too much white. But then as you blend it in, you see that, oh, it worked out. Paint is very forgiving, so don't panic. Just paint. I'm gonna bring that accent of the shadow in a little bit more here on that bend of the leaf. A little bit more here because it's behind the leaf. And while that's kind of drying up, I'm gonna water that down, that edge down just a little bit so it's not a stark shadow edge. We'll do that by washing the color out with the water to blend it in with the other color. So our ladybugs here, they need our dots. What's a ladybug without a dot? So let's bring these gals to life. Gonna come in with my little brush and dip it in the black paint that we've been mysteriously saving for last. And I'm going to just put some little dots where I think ladybugs should have dots. They're just little circles. Circles are hard for everybody. Don't panic if your circle doesn't look like a circle. We can come back in and touch up around the black paint with the red paint. They don't have to be perfect. You could make them heart shapes on your ladybugs. It doesn't have to be an exact circle. And we're just going to put some ladybug circles on our ladybug. Maybe you want to do a half circle because one's coming off the edge. That might be fun. I'm also going to take the black now and outline the ladybug to make it stand out from the background and the leaves and such. You just want to take your time going around the edge of the ladybug. If your paint isn't spreading like it should, a nice even smooth surface, try adding just a touch of water to it so that it spreads a little bit more evenly for you. And just go right around the edge of your ladybug shape. I'm gonna do that on my other little ladybug. And as you can see, my black line is not always the same shape. Sometimes it varies in thickness. That's just yet another way to add texture and interest to your piece of art. So I'm going to also, while we're here making our ladybug shape, I'm going to come in and do the head. And the head is just a little circle as well. Oh, that like little oval, I guess you would say. And I'm going to leave that little area here. Maybe that's like a little eyeball. You don't have to, but it talked to me today and said it wanted an eyeball. There's a little eyeball there. You can do the same one on here with this little one. And just kind of touch up where you see maybe you want that line to match. You can go back in, touch it up a little bit. So our ladybugs look a little flat. The red's kind of one color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush that I'm working with currently and I'm going to dip it in the water and I'm going to make a black wash. And I'm just going to go right around the edge of the line that we made and kind of bring in a little bit of the black onto the red. And we're going to do this. And you're going to be like, but wait, we're messing up our ladybug. But we're not. So I'm going to show you how that this undercoat, when we put a red coat on, it's going to look like a shadow. And it's going to give your ladybug a little bit of a rounder feel. So let's let that dry just a little bit. While we're waiting for that to dry, I'm going to come up here, come in with my blue, no white mixed in, and just accentuate the edge of the bottom of the flower, not the whole flower. Just going to accentuate the edge of the bottoms. That's going to give your painting a little bit of a added texture for your eye to say, oh, there's some different light going there. And I'm not going to do it around the whole length of the petal, just on the tips. And I think that the ladybugs have probably dried enough so that we can work with that black. I'm going to take and dip in the red with my little brush, and I'm going to kind of work the red around in the black line that we made, and that it shows a little bit of shadowing on your bug. Let's see how we're bringing that shadow out. You see that there's a lot of black still picking up on your brush. You can just clean it and bring in some more red. You'll see how that shadow is starting to really become more of like a red than a black. That's one of the benefits of layering your paint. You don't necessarily have to make a black dark red. You could just put a black under the red and paint over it to give it that shadow effect. I'm going to do the same over here to this little guy. We're almost done. This black is a little bit more wetter than I'd like it to be, but don't panic. Just wait for it to dry a tiny bit. We'll work over here on this side. Just creating that little bit of a shadow so that this ladybug doesn't look flat. It's round. And last but not least, I'm going to save the best for last. We are going to bring in their little heart-shaped antenna. So you want to take and make sure you have your tiny brush loaded with just a small amount of black paint and a little bit of water so that it goes on smooth and evenly. And just take your time when you're doing this. If you want to make them straight, you can. I'm just going to make a little curl here. And a little curl here. And that's the heart. Just kind of like the same almost shape of the stems. And then the little baby bug is going to get them too. And if you mess up on this, you can take some white paint, go right over the place where you put the antenna, wait for it to dry, and then do your antenna again. And I think we have a ladybug. painting. If you want, you can outline your blades of grass in the black just to make them pop a little. The outline, it doesn't have to be perfect. It gives us texture when it's different shapes, colors, thicknesses. Artwork doesn't have to be perfect to be good. As you've seen many art hanging in museums, sometimes you can't even make out what it is. Sometimes it's not even anything but color. There's no wrong way to art. Please remember that whenever you're creating your next masterpiece. I'm not gonna highlight all of the blades of grass with the black, just a couple, just to give some definition here and there of what might be going on. And kind of cleans up the edge too. We have, let's see. And define where one thing starts and one thing ends. Black is good for that. You might not want to have the black going around all over. I kind of just did a boo-boo with my black, but I'm not going to panic. I'm going to work with it because it's just paint. When that dries, I'll come back and paint over it with the green, and nobody will even know, oh, that black was there. You need to turn your canvas at any point for a better angle. Always do that. You just have to have it right in straight up and down. Some of these lines when you're doing a contour line can be a little hard at different angles. So definitely feel free to move it around. I'm gonna put a little bit of black in the middle of the flower, just a little bit. Just tapping my brush all around in certain parts of the flower too, just to kind of tie all of the painting together. See, I'm going very lightly with the black on the flower, just to give the petals a little bit of contrast to each other and the sky around it, and to define it just a little bit. All right, so I think that we're at a point where we can look at our painting, touch it up if you like. If there's anything that you don't like, maybe you want to take a break and come back to it tomorrow. Just see if there's areas that you still think needs work. We gave you plenty of paint, so definitely come back, work on it. If you want to layer in some different colors, you want to try a different technique. You want to paint the grass purple and your ladybugs orange. You can do that all once it dries. There's no permanent painting ever. Once it dries, you can start all over again. So I hope that we encouraged you to connect with your creative side, be brave and pick up a paintbrush. And until next time, please create. Oh, and then also, I just thought if you would like to post your finished paintings, please tag us, Coleman Events. We would love to see your final works of art. Message us on Facebook, post them up. I would love to see what you guys created with me, even though I wasn't there. Take care.